There's some people out there that say the world is going to end, and you'll be surprised at what they think is going to end it. Hi, my little flavors. Welcome to another episode of the Motley Stew Show, where we try to dig through the nitty-gritty of some of the big stories of the week in the news and in politics and try to break through the echo chamber and figure out what's really going on and why we should care. Taking a break from the 2016 presidential hopefuls, we're going to start talking today about a topic that will definitely be mentioned in the campaign, specifically because of Hillary Clinton and Carly Fiorina. That fearful, scary, dastardly word that is going to come up so much is feminist. Now, before we get into what that word means in today's political climate, let's actually talk about what the word actually means and its history. Because there are many people out there right now who are actually using that word to their own ends, and those ends are seriously frayed. So according to dictionary.com, feminism means the doctrine advocating social, political, and all other rights of women equal to those of men. Sometimes initial capital letter being used, an organized movement for the attainment of such rights for women, or older use, feminine character. According to an online etymology dictionary, the word was first coined in 1837, but it wasn't until 1848 with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and a number of Quaker women who actually formed the first women's rights conference. Now that took place in Seneca Falls, New York. They drafted what was called the Declaration of Sentiments, which laid out all the parts of government and society that they were blocked from participating in, and all those laws that were actually written against them. Let's take a look at those right now. He has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable right to the elective franchise. He has compelled her to submit to laws, in the formation of which she had no voice. He has withheld her from rights which are given to the most ignorant and degraded men, both natives and foreigners. He has made her, if married, in the eye of the law, civilly dead. In the covenant of marriage, she is compelled to promise obedience to her husband, he becoming, to all intents and purposes, her master, the law giving him power to deprive her of her liberty and to administer chastisement. He has monopolized nearly all of the profitable employments, and from those she is permitted to follow, she receives but a scanty remuneration. He has created a false public sentiment by giving to the world a different code of morals for men and women, by which moral delinquencies, which exclude women from society, are not only tolerated, but deemed of little account in man. He has usurped the prerogative of Jehovah himself, claiming it as his right to assign for her a sphere of action, when that belongs to her conscience and her God. He has endeavored in every way that he could to destroy her confidence in her own powers, to lessen her self-respect, and to make her willing to lead a dependent and abject life. Now that's just some of them, and if you want to read all of them, I'll give you a link down below. So that's 167 years ago, over a century and a half for us to learn what that word really means and how it was employed all the way back then to what women were fighting for, what they needed. Yet somewhere along the way, the word has been stolen and used for this idea that to be a feminist, women must hate men. They must be superior to men, and they must reduce men to some sort of crawling, cave-dwelling Neanderthal that's only good for hammering things into the wall or finding that damn remote. Seriously, there is a renaissance of ignorance surrounding this term as society reignites a battle for gender equality that hasn't been seen since the late 60s or early 70s. Today, we hear about feminism in a number of different ways. Supporters of it use it as a term to talk about gender parity, gender equality across all lines, and in fact, equality across all races and creeds and genders. While others lob it across the battle lines like a verbal grenade, equating the opponent as a sexist, man-hating lesbian, or if the man's a target, he's weak-willed, he's whipped, and he's a sissy. And of course, not well endowed. Most of the hate around this word is coming from a small segment of society, which is mostly men, but not all, who are clinging to old-fashioned gender roles, where men went out and earned the money to take care of the home, and the women stayed home and took care of the children. And sure, that scenario sounds kind of picturesque to some people, but that ignores the underlying darkness of where those gender roles actually came from. Days when women couldn't leave the house without a male escort for fear of being seen as harlots. Women who couldn't control their own bank accounts because obviously they were too dumb for basic math. Women who couldn't claim physical or sexual abuse against their fathers, brothers, boyfriends, or husband, obviously because they asked for it, they dressed for it, or they made them do it. The idea that there already is gender parity and women's rights, and that this uprising of feminism is just a lot of whining and trying to get revenge on men for some sort of past sins, is utter nonsense. Places like these that I'm showing now run on fear. The fear that these men are somehow losing masculinity or losing power because women can actually be equal or, God forbid, in a higher position than them. So how does this cultural uprising of double X respect, and not triple X, that's a whole different topic, come into play in the 2016 election? Well, according to some folks, if Hillary Clinton wins, it will only be proof that feminism is ruining the world. Doubt their sincerity? Let's look at some of the recent greatest hits of what's being blamed on feminism. The Ferguson riots, infrastructure funding being derailed, NFL punishment of football players, security breaches at the White House because the guard was female, domestic violence itself, sexual assault on college campuses, the supposed end of Father's Day, boys falling behind in school, the disintegration of the family structure, female teachers getting sexually involved with their students, the banning of water guns from the Boy Scouts. Overall, ruining women. Certain men see the power structure that had been standing for a long time beginning to crumble, and it frightens them. But it shouldn't. The core tenet of feminism is not to punish men for sins of the past. It is to create gender parity across both genders, or many genders if you want to get really specific. And it's not some radical idea that we think that there should be more women in government, especially when you're talking about legislation surrounding birth control and abortion, because it is their bodies that is being regulated. Men can completely understand the weight of these decisions, and we can support them or debate them, but we can never fully comprehend the intrinsic battle that goes on inside of a woman when she makes these huge decisions. Feminism, like racism, once you understand it, is an idea that is impossible to negate. All people, everyone, are created equal and should be treated as such. That brings me to the question for this week. What is your impression of feminism? Do you consider yourself to be a feminist? Have you had good or bad interactions with someone else who considers themselves to be one? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching another episode of the Motley Stew Show. If you like what's going on here, go ahead and click that subscribe button and be a part of the people that are helping me reach the goal of hitting 100 subscribers by the end of this year. You can also share, like, and favorite this video, which is kind of like adding sprinkles to my digital video cake. Also, if you're interested in some of the other stuff that I do, you can check out my blog site at themotleystew.com, where I recently posted a couple reviews of products that I got to look at, one being iHome batteries from their Power Omni series, and the other 3D puzzles from recent toys. Stay tuned for next week, and as always, a little bit of Logan.
Building blocks.
He's gonna solve it. He's gonna solve it.
Teddy bear. Way to go.
You did it.
Way to go. That is so cute.
Close.
Let go.
Where did it go?
Far away.
It flew away.
Far away.
I just took a huge gulp of water right when you did that.
Seriously, there is a modern-day renaissance of ignorance. Ignorance? Yes?
Were you able to shoot?
I'm still shooting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I wasn't sure if it was too long.
No, it's fine. Ah.